I want to say that I was humbled yesterday by the public acknowledgement of me by the Honourable Mary Ellen Trapella-Fond. As you can tell, she's an amazing champion of women and children in the province of BC since she came to us. In my opinion, she's one of the greatest lights that we have in our province, and she's like a beacon forward. And for those of us that live in British Columbia, I would say that it's a consensus that she rocks. And so, if Mary Ellen, if you're watching, you have my greatest appreciation for your amazing work as the greatest advocate for children and women I think that BC has ever had. Much safety planning, as all of us know, often focuses on things that women need to do in order to keep themselves safe. We have women practice getting out of their homes safely. We ask them to be cognizant of what doors or windows or roads or paths they can escape violence readily. We ask them to alert their neighbors or call the police if they hear a fight. We suggest they choose a code word and make sure the school or the daycare or friends or family know this code word. We tell them that if there's assault that in the house, that they should move to a space in the house to try to avoid bathrooms and garages and kitchens or rooms that have weapons or rooms that don't have an outside door. We ask them to plan ahead in emergencies to make sure that there's extra car keys or bus money or clothes or documents hidden at a friend's house. And really, the list is staggering what we ask women to do. And I think that those are all important considerations that we need women to continue to be cognizant of, and the list is a lot longer than that. But I think that there's other interventions that we need to be cognizant of. Aside from the community and system services and responses that relate to advocacy, emotional support, justice intervention, and child protection, I think that the state needs to be thinking about the other supports that women need beyond what they can do themselves, beyond the things that are just in control themselves. If we are going to be providing women with options to leave, we need to ensure that there's safe, affordable housing, that there's childcare, that there's job training, that there's a livable amount of social assistance that they can live on. I think that it's of incredible importance for us to be thinking about the broader system and not just the woman, not just the police, not just corrections or shelters and so forth, but what exists around her. The other thing that I want to talk about is that our responses and analysis also need to include working with women while they stay in an abusive situation. I think often our interventions are trying to get women to leave, and if they don't leave, we get upset, and naturally so, because we want them to be safe. But I think that it's important for us to be aware of the fact that most community-based advocates in Ontario, at shelters in BC, it's community-based victim assistance programs, have been doing the work of working with women who leave and with women who stay. And I think that it's for that reason it's of critical importance to make sure that these community advocates are at the tables, whether it be high-risk planning, whether it be policy development, whether it be a death review committee, because they have 40 years, obviously not all of us are that old, but organizationally they have 40 years of experience of working from this perspective and doing nothing but responding to sexual and domestic violence. I heard this week of a few examples here in Ontario and elsewhere where there is community advocates at the table, and I'm encouraged to see that. I think historically there was privacy concerns that stood in the way of having community organizations, community advocates at these planning tables, these risk management tables. But I think of late there's been policy legislative interpretations and policy changes. In fact, in BC there was a privacy policy change specific to domestic violence to make it really clear to all the system players that safety trumps privacy. I think having those that work with assaultive men also need to be at these tables because they have a unique perspective Those who work the very closest with women and those who work the closest with men who use violence, I think, have tremendous information and insights to offer the police and corrections and probation and child protection and all the other system players. I think that not only do these community players provide important insights for everybody at the table, but they can also fill in important information gaps. Women who experience violence, as we know, don't report to the police that often. There's a justified fear of the state and a fear of having their children removed. There's a fear of getting the system involved. Women tend to tell their advocates a lot more information about what's going on that they wouldn't necessarily tell the police, and that might be information that she might not know, but that directly leads to situations that increase her risk. But I think it's most important that women advocates be at these tables, because they need to know the information from the risk assessors. They need to be able to assist women with their safety planning, with the benefit of knowing what kinds of risks that you might know, those of you in the system that he's posing, that the advocate or the women may not know. I think that the advocates have been doing an incredible job for a number of years doing safety planning with women who experience violence, even though they haven't had access to these, the depth of risk assessments, the kind of things that Randy Kropp would be talking about. And in fact, I'd go so far as to say that in the deaths that we've reviewed in BC, we've been hard-pressed to find a woman who has died that was connected to a community-based advocate. And so what we conclude is that the women who are dying are the women who aren't connected to those advocacy programs. And I think that the programs that are, those community advocate programs, they are perhaps the only ones that are part of the process in communities that have an involvement with every system. So the police have their job, the prosecutors have their job, child protection has their job, and so on. But the advocates are the ones that move across all of the sectors and have important and unique insights to offer the cross-sectoral table, if you will. They have a level of specialization. They don't deal with anything else. All of the other system people here in the room, you deal with a myriad of other things, not just domestic violence, unless you're a specialized domestic violence person, but they are dealing with that level of specialization, so that the analysis that they bring, I think, provides a unique and important insight. And safety planning obviously is then deeper and better for everybody if we all have the information instead of having one big gaping hole at the table. I think amazing things can happen when cross-sectoral tables get together. And just as a couple of examples, in BC, we were noticing that we were seeing a lot of women arrested, women who themselves were for years victims of domestic violence, but the police were beginning to arrest women in quite high numbers. And we believe that that has a lot to do with the changing, the retiring demographic of RCMP and the numbers of new police we have, and the lack of access to training. And so all of a sudden they were arriving on a scene and arresting either both people or arresting her. So we sat down with E Division, our provincial detachment, the commanding detachment, and developed a primary aggressor assessment policy, so that now when police attend a scene, if there's a female that looks like as the perpetrator, they are to, they don't always do it, they are to engage in what's called a primary aggressor assessment, so that they can actually do a better job in trying to assess who's the aggressor or what's the nature of the history of violence in that relationship. Another great thing that came from community working together with police, community advocates working together with the police, we were noticing sometimes, again, new officers not always understanding imminent issues related to safety and risk, and not necessarily following up on something in the same kind of way that some of us might have seen was necessary. And so we have RCMP policy, it's called a Safety Issue Protocol, SIP. If anybody wants a copy of it, you can give me your business card and I'd be happy to send it to you, so that we have a process in place that if an issue has gone off the rails in a community, that community can contact us. We'll do some things. I'm kind of obviously not giving you all the details, but at the end of the day, we can contact the district commander, and the district commander is obligated to investigate the situation on an urgent basis and get back to us and let us know what the problem was. And in the few times that we've actually had to implement the SIP protocol, I'm happy to say that a couple of lives were saved because somebody didn't understand something about risk, but the community people did, and we were able to intervene. I think that there's some amazing things that can happen. We've also been supporting the development of what we're calling ICAT teams, interagency case assessment teams. And these are community advocates working together with RCMP, and at the table are generally community-based victim assistance, child protection, police, corrections, parole, mental health, shelters, social assistance, and the hospital, all working together to assess high-risk cases. And I think that it's important that one of the ways that they've kind of addressed the issue of privacy and people concerned about over disclosure if they're not all justice players is that they're engaging in the development of MOUs and have people sign oaths of confidentiality, or in some cases an undertaking of confidentiality, so people are legally committing to keep what they hear at the table so that they can freely share information. So basically, I fully believe, and it's something that my organization and the advocates in BC have been doing for many years, working cross-sectorally is the only way of increasing safety for women and kids, and I think it's the way forward. And I'm really pleased to have had an opportunity to be among this group, because I think at the national level we can make big changes that are important as well. Thank you.